golfers, we are going to talk about approach wedge play here, how to go about hitting these shots inside of 100 yards more consistently, right? Making good contact, seeing a proper launch angle, and getting distance control to become more consistent. There are a few faults that people tend to do when they're trying to hit these shots, in my opinion, that are not doing them any favors. And more specifically, I see this with recreational golfers all the time. The first one is they try to control their tempo. This is a problem, in my opinion. It's commonly understood when we get out onto the golf course, all of a sudden there's a lot of nerves involved, right? There's penalties around us, there's water, there's bunkers. We really want to make sure we hit a good shot. There's adrenaline flowing. So we're a little nervous. What happens when we're a little nervous? We tend to speed up. We get a little quick. So golfers that are trying to control their tempo, right? Let's say my stock sandwich goes somewhere around 100 yards, and I'm trying to hit this thing now 70 or 75 yards. What I come across a lot is golfers who make these really long backswings, and then they're trying to slow down their tempo coming through the ball to take some speed and distance off the golf ball. This is a nightmare scenario. Number one, like I said, when you're under pressure, you're going to speed up. Trying to then slow down is a very uncomfortable feel through the golf ball. It's not really easy to be consistent with that when your body is naturally wanting to fire a little faster than normal. Number two, if I'm going to really decel coming into this golf ball, I'm not generating enough speed to make good contact and see that ball take off on the club face. So I might slow down too much. I might not slow down enough. Again, distance control becomes a big problem. Not really ideal in those situations. Let's try to keep our tempo consistent no matter what distance we're hitting it. If we're hitting it 50 yards, 75 yards, 90 yards, it does not matter. Try to maintain the same consistent tempo that you would on a stock shot, okay? Number two, on these swings, I see golfers who tend to restrict their hip turn a lot. Now, this is another problem scenario because if I'm going to try to hit a shot where I'm restricting my hip turn, first of all, I'm completely damaging the sequence of events that are taking place because now my upper body is moving too much relative to my lower body. I don't know if I'm then going to use my upper body too much in transition, and now the club's going to come down on a very different plane than you're used to. Already you're creating problems. But then number two, if I'm going to use my hands, arms, and chest a lot in my backswing and I'm not going to use my hips, well, my hips aren't going to magically fire coming into the golf ball. So all of a sudden now I'm not going to necessarily be rotating my hips very well through the target. So what's going to happen? Well, I'm going to be all handsy in the backswing. I'm likely going to be all handsy coming down. Now I'm going to start to release my hands a little too early. I'm going to start to change how much loft I'm delivering at the bottom. And if I can't control my loft, I can't control my distance, right? The way in which we deliver this club back to the golf ball is a big indicator on how high it's going to go, how low it's going to go, how much spin is going to be on that golf ball. If I'm hitting a shot inside of 70 yards, I can deliver the exact same amount of club speed, but have 2, 3, 4 very different ball flights if my hands and club are coming into the golf ball in very different ways. If I can't control my launch, I can't control my distance, right? That's how you control your spin. That's how you control how it lands and everything else that entails that situation, those shots. So in these scenarios, not ideal. Again, we want to be using our legs just like we would in a full swing. It's no different just because the shot's 50 yards. We don't want to just magically start restricting our hip turn and becoming all hands and arms. Too inconsistent way to go about those shots. Where is my preference? Well, my preference tends to be, we certainly want to be retaining some form of tempo in these shots, right? We don't want to be decelling coming into the golf ball with a really long backswing. And we certainly want to use our lower body because at the end of the day, no matter how short this shot is, we are going to try to sustain the same sequence that we would on a fuller swing, which means that we're going to have some amount of hip turn going back, and we're going to have some amount of hip turn going through, pointing at the target, even if the shot is 50 yards, 40 yards, doesn't matter. My ideal situation is that we shorten up the arm swing. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean to hinge the club differently. So again, if you're somebody who plays with a little bit more hinge to the wrist, that's totally fine. If you're somebody who's a little bit more dead-handed and you have less hinging of the wrist, again, that's fine. I don't want you to change the way you're hinging the club for these shots, right? This is another issue you come across. It's like a golfer who's trying to add more hinge or trying to add less hinge, and they're completely changing the way the wrists naturally move in their full swing. It's a very inconsistent way to try to hit one shot one way and another shot a different way and then try to repeat both of them consistently. Not good. What I want you to do is still have your hip turn in these shots, even if you're hitting it 40, 50, 60, 70 yards, but shorten up the arm swing. So the engine of this movement is actually my chest, right? My hands and arms are the passengers. They're along for the ride. I want the core of your body to be the motor for these shots. So if I'm going to hit it 50 yards, I'm still going to engage my core. I'm still going to turn my hips. I'm still going to rotate my upper body as well in the backswing. But I'm going to shorten up my arm swing, maybe for a 50-yard shot. and sustain some decent amount of tempo coming through the ball with a lot of rotation of my body. Again, my engine is the motor on these, my chest is the engine on these shots. I'm getting confused with semantics. If I'm trying to hit this ball 70, 80 yards, well, I'm again going to create a lot of hip turn. I'm again going to rotate my upper body, but I'm just going to have maybe a 60, 70, 80% arm swing. So I'm still rotating my hips. I'm still sustaining a lot of tempo through this golf ball, but I'm going to cut my arm swing by 25, 30, 40%. And then again, I'm still going to engage my core and I'm still going to rotate through the golf ball. Okay. If I'm trying to hit more of a stock shot, which for me with my sandwich is somewhere around 95 to 105 yards, depending how much tempo obviously I give at it. Well, if I'm trying to sustain the tempo and I'm going to make this fuller swing, I'm going to engage my hips, I'm going to engage my chest, I'm going to make a full backswing rotation here. My arms are going to go up a little bit longer. So the arm swing going back is really where I want you to start changing the length that your arms travel back, depending how far you want to hit these shots. But you still want to sustain a lot of tempo here, right? We're not slowing down to try to hit the ball a shorter way, and you still want to engage your lower body. We still want to make sure that we're rotating on the way back, even if the shot is a shorter distance, regardless of how high, how low I want to launch it. This is what's going to help me to deliver the club back to the ball with the same amount of shaft lean, or at least more consistently near the same amount of shaft lean every single time, so that we can launch it the appropriate way. So if I'm trying to hit these shots, well, I would go halfway back with a body rotation on these 50, 60 yarders. I would lengthen the arm swing on 75, 80 yards with, again, same tempo, still engaging my core. And then I lengthen it all the way, nice big turn if I'm trying to hit these shots somewhere around like 100 to 105 yards, which for me is my stock sandwich. Okay, so keep in mind, you're still rotating your hips, you're still utilizing the ground, you're still sustaining tempo, but you're shortening up the arm swing relative to that so that you can control how far that ball is going to go. You'll be way more consistent inside 100 yards with your distance control if you go about it this way, okay?